uncut, unedited. All right, people, y'all know this is where we tell the truth and shame the devil. I got my partner today. She co-hosting with me today, Vera Giles Norris, and our special guest, Professor Benny Lee, y'all, in the house. So we're going to wait for a few more people to come in. But while we're waiting, I want my partner to say a word or two real quick. Come on, partner.
Man, you know what, Martin? I'm just excited to. Well, first of all, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. But guess what? I'm just excited to be on with you and Benny Lee. I feel, I feel like, listen, we got celebrities in the building, and we really got a great topic today too. So I can't wait to just kind of get in place. I'm asking people when you come in, just go ahead and share the video, tag somebody, and be ready to call in and ask questions, because I think today is really going to be a hot topic. Great conversation.
I agree with you. We're going to wait for a few more people to come on in. We got like about 36 people, maybe about 50 people. That's cool with me. And while we're doing that, I'm going to share it. And brother Benny Lee, we on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So, all right, Vera. Listen, real quick, Vera. Tell us how you know Benny Lee. I know you know him before, way before.
Yeah, so you know what? It's been, man, Benny, we got to go back because it's been a while. It's been at least, over 5, 6 years? Maybe it's been about 6 years. I interviewed him on the Cats Out show. So Benny Lee did come to the Cats Out show. He let the cat out the bag, and I don't even recall exactly what our topic was about. I believe it was some type of nonprofit organization or something he had going on, giving back to the community. It may be some of the same of what he has going on right now. But like I said, it's been roughly about maybe 6, 7 years ago now, Benny. You remember how long it's been?
Yeah, we was talking about reentry and the collateral consequences that formerly incarcerated people deal with once they come out of prison, and how they face with all these different barriers. We call them social disabilities, to disable you to get stable in the social life. Yeah, that's what we talked about.
Okay. All right. Professor Benny Lee, the show is yours right now. I want you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
All right. Yeah, I was born with the name Bennett Lee, and because my father, they call my father Benny. They call his name is Benjamin Lee, and they call him Benny Lee, and they want to name him after him, but he hate that name Benjamin Lee. So my mother says, since they call Kenneth Bennett Benny, why don't we name him Bennett and call him Benny? So that's how I got that name. And for some reason, that name always stuck with me, even in the streets. We be out there hustling, and they call me by my whole name, Benny Lee. I'm like, come on, man, it's my whole name, Benny Lee, right? And I grew up on the west side of Chicago, off of Jackson, right there. You know, we was like one of the first black families to move in the Austin community, and it was kind of rough, have to fight whites just to go swimming at Columbus Park, right? And then when we graduated out the 8th grade in 1968, we went to an all-white school, Austin High School. Martin Luther King had just got assassinated, so the racial tension was high. And so when we went to school, we was attacked by the whites. We was just defending ourselves. And we all blacks got suspended. Nothing happened to the white students. They say I was the ringleader, and I was the only one end up in juvenile court. And they end up sending me to an IYC, Joliet. That's a maximum security prison for youth. And I went there, and then I ended up transferred to St. Charles. That's where all the rough youth was at. So I met a lot of street gang members from the South Side, Disciples and Stones, because on the west side we was vice lords, and then you had Black Souls, all that. And I supposed to did 3 months, but by me being gang affiliated, them 3 months turned to 2 years. So when I came out, I really wasn't prepared to come on, because I was still thinking like a 15-year-old. And I ended up in the county jail, like a homecoming. Got in that county jail. Same guy that was in the juvenile with me, we met in the jail. Then I ended up in prison at 19. I didn't come on until I was 27. The last 3 years of that bit, I was on death row. I went to Pontiac Prison in 1978, and there was a rebellion. 3 guards got killed, 3 white guards at that. And first they said it was due to overcrowding conditions. But then after they did the investigation, they said it was a gang takeover. And so they grabbed every gang leader that was in that prison at the time and shipped us from Pontiac Prison to Stateville and put us on death row. And then about a year later, the indictments came down, and they charged each one of us with 15 counts of murder, 2 attempt murder, mob action. And when we went to court, the state was definitely seeking the death penalty, and there was 17 of us on the case, but we didn't trust each other because we were from different street organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And Minister Louis Farrakhan was just rebuilding the Nation of Islam because it had fell apart after Honorable Elijah Muhammad had died. And so he came to see us in Stateville. And he said the conspiracy happened 300 years ago when black men were taught not to trust each other through this Willie Lynch formula, right? And that made some sense to us, and then we came together, we became the original boss, brothers of the struggle.
Okay.
And that's of all the different mobs, the GDs, the disciples, the Stones, the Vice Lords, the El Rukins, right? So we became one. And as we came together, the brothers behind the walls came together.
Right.
And then the brothers on the streets came together on our behalf. So we was able to come from behind that. So that's a little bit about me from the West Side. Spent 3 years on the Gulf Road, got out, was lost, went right back after that. But that's when my life turned around when I went back to prison, because I was a little older, and there was a lot of young guys coming down, 18, 19, and these were the sons of girls I went to grammar school with. And they would call home and tell their mamas they met me, and their mamas would call me to the phone and tell me to look out for their baby. And their grandmamas would come to the phone. Benny, look out for my baby, right? And so that gave me a sense of responsibility to my community. And I'm here for these young guys, right? And so I put a law down and told them that they didn't have a high school diploma, they need to enroll in school. And if they had one, they need to take up a trade. Because, as vice lords, we had an oath that we took, that we would serve our time constructively. So upon our release, we'd become a more productive member of our community. So I was pushing that, right? What we found was there was only 80 slots for people to go to school down there, right? And there was like a 2-year waiting list, right? And so we tried to talk to administration, and they spent us. I just say, well, okay, don't no vice lord, mop a flow, sweep a gallery, let these guards do it. So Larry Hoover said, don't no GDs do it. Lord Gino said, well, don't no Latin Kings do it. So they had to pull officers from other prisons to come and cook for us and clean up. And they was frustrated. And so now the warden wanted to talk. And I told the warden, look, we're not going up in the administration building. You work out a deal. You get these brothers think we done sold them out. We're going to meet right here. So we had a town hall meet in the cell house. And I told the warden, I said, look, a lot of us come from marginalized communities where there's social disorganization and we have limited opportunities for school and education, right, and jobs. This is why we're here. And now here we are in this prison, with over 2,000 inmates, and you only got a slot for 80 people to go to school and 110 jobs. We leave it here ill-prepared to function out there, and that's why we recidivate and come back here. You didn't change that, right? So 2 days later, they threw me in SIG, so I could have incited a riot.
Oh, wow.
Right, because, in my jacket, I'd have been in 3 different prison riots, right? And so that was the worst thing they could have did, because they threw me in the cell, and the guy that was there before me had left Malcolm X autobiography on the book. I had heard of Malcolm X, but I didn't know too much about him.
Right.
So I just took the book and threw it in the corner. After being in SIG for about 3 months, out of boredom, I grabbed it and turned right to the page where Malcolm X was frustrated because he couldn't comprehend what he was reading. So he put the text down and picked up a dictionary and studied it from A to Z. So I hollered down the gallery, asked, who got a dictionary? So I started studying the dictionary. Then his brother, Coach Chief, which was in the royal family, he said, hey, little brother, check this here out. He gave me Chain and Images of Psychological Slavery by Dr. Naeem Akbar.
Oh, yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Then another brother sent me Miseducation of the Negro by Dr. College. Then I read Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. So when I came out of SIG, I had a different psychology. I was thinking. I started seeing myself different as a black man. I started seeing the world different. And I started seeing myself functioning in the world different than I have been. Right. So I told my mom, I said, look, man, we saying we are an organization, but we acting like a gang, man. It's some things we got to do. I would hate to see these young guys go through what we've been through. We just spent all our 20s behind this wall. I would hate to see this with these young guys. But them old guys wanted to exploit their little brothers, shank them up, put them on security. I said, man, I would die before I let this just happen, especially because those come from my neighborhood. So I see I couldn't get nowhere with them. That's why I told them I'm through with this. I ain't with it no more. So I relinquished myself from any rank I had, any status. So I was a neutron for 3 months in the penitentiary. And when I came out, the rest is history. I came out on a mission, just like Malcolm came out. I came out dedicated to do something and be the message I bring. This is why I try to tell a lot of my peers, we can't talk to these young brothers about how it was for us, because that ain't how it is now. We got to listen to them and see how they see the world and how they see their lives. And once they teach us that, now we know how to address them. But we just can't say how it was for us. Shoot, if I talk about how it was for me, TV went off at 10 o'clock at night back in my day. Wasn't no such thing as cable TV, iPhone, and all that, cell phones, and that stuff didn't even exist. So yeah, I try to approach these brothers, with from their world, join their world, normalize it where it makes sense, right? Because that's what developed their psychology. How did they learn to function and survive out of the circumstances they're faced with? And that becomes their psychology, how they see the world. So I have to join their world, normalize it, and gradually pull them into a new awareness. That's the technique I use. I never told a guy he needs to get out of the game.
Let me ask you a question, Benny Lee. So you on a new mission, it's a new day, and you have an organization, I believe, violence prevention, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. Huh?
It's called NAFI, National Alliance for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated.
Okay.
We work with men and women that have criminal background to show them how to market themselves as convicted felons. But see, this is our way of reducing the violence. Because see, when a person commits a crime, they offend somebody when they commit their crime. And then that person might retaliate and that leads to violence. So to reduce the violence, we work with the people and teach them how to refrain from doing criminal ways. And our motto is based on Martin Luther King's beloved community model. It's a nonviolent model that Martin Luther King has called the beloved community. And there's 3 levels. The first level start with yourself, get you together. And there's 4 elements. First, what do I need to be educated on? What do I need to be educated on? And then how do I sustain a new way of life? How do I sustain it? And then how do I console myself when I run into some tragedies or some mishaps or some disappointment? And then how do I celebrate myself when I achieve things? And then it moved to relationships.
Okay.
So now the people I'm in relationships with, family, people I work with, people I normally come in contact with on regular. So what should those people be educated on? Like family need to be educated on the family history. What are some of the norms? How do we interact with each other? How do we sustain the relationships? What are the do's and the don'ts among us to help sustain our relationships? We have regular family dinners or family reunions, and then how do we console each other if somebody get killed or someone lose their job or somebody get rejected or don't make it to high school? How do we as a family console ourselves, right? And then how do we celebrate a victory among us? And then the third level is community. What should the community be educated on, right? And then how do the community sustain community? How do we become community and sustain it? And then how do we console each other in community when a tragedy happened, like a baby get killed. I don't
Right.
have to know the people who lost the baby, but this is community. So how do I console me and those around me? How does community come and we console ourselves because of this tragedy? And then how do we celebrate victories? You know, those are the three levels: self, relationships, and community. But when we do these trainings around that, what we find is a lot of people can't move past self. Because when it's time to look at, okay, let's look at relationships. You hear people say, well, I don't mess with that dude. I don't mess with them. I don't mess with this member of my family. So what that says is you don't know how to have relationships. You don't know how to reconcile. You don't know how to humble to bring, unity among those peoples, right?
Right.
And by you saying, I don't mess with them, you part of not sustaining the relationships with family or with co-workers, those you interact with. And you can never move to community level. You got a lot of people say, I do work in the community, but they started saying, well, I don't mess with this group over here. Well, how are you effective in the community when you can't reconcile? When you can't come together, people, right? So it began with self first. It began with self first. And then how you develop self, it's going to have a lot to do with how you interact with people in relationships. And then how you can interact on the community level. That's what you call the beloved community model. And Martin Luther King said, we need a community free of discrimination, racism, militarism. As long as those triple evils, as he called it, are present, we can never have a beloved community. Like during the 60s, the law enforcement didn't know how to deal with the Watts riots and the riots in Chicago, the convention riots and all that stuff, and Martin Luther King riots. They didn't know how to deal with that, the law enforcement. So they brought military in, the trained police officers, how to deal with groups. So they was learning military tactics, right? And they still using them today, right? And they even got laws now, stop and frisk. It's like our communities are under siege, right? 2 or 3 brothers walking down the street, they jumping out, get up against the wall. That's militarism, right? Violating your Fourth Amendment right, illegal search and seizure. They stop you for traffic. They don't have the right to search your vehicle, but they do that. And they justify it by saying this is a high crime rate area. And they constantly violating our constitutional rights, right? But the thing is, I talk about this in part 2, one of the principles of nonviolence is attack the forces of evil, not the person doing the evil.
Okay.
Because if we tackle police that kill a little young black guy, that's another one gonna come behind him and do it, and then another, and then another, until we attack the forces of evil. That system to let these guys know that I got to change our policies. The police do that. Not only do you fire him, you charge him.
Right.
Not only do you charge him, you take his pension. And that make police think I'm unprotected now. But right now, this system protects them. So we don't attack the police, we attack the forces of evil. Those that control and got the authority to change policies that are hold them accountable. And that's what we fall short as a people. We don't follow through on the issue. We let it go.
Brother Benny Lee, let me ask you a question. 2 things I want to ask you. It's more like, it ain't personal, but what do you do? Just suppose I'm coming home from 10 years from the joint. Okay. For murder, I beat the murder, I served my time, I'm on probation. And I tell you, I said, Brother Benny Lee, I don't want that life out there no more. What would you tell me? What would you tell me?
Well, the first thing I want you to do is become part of this reentry community.
Okay.
And once I introduce you to this reentry community, what I mean by that, other brothers that probably did more time than you, right? And now they home and living righteous lives. So you part of a network of other brothers and sisters that did time just like you, probably longer than you, worse cases than you, but we live in decent lives, right? So now you become part of a network. Now our next thing is that humble yourself, man. You got to look at how do you market yourself right? Not just as a convicted felon, but as a person. Because a lot of guys will get rejected from a job or on an interview and say, well, they didn't hire me because of my background. Then I said, well, let's look at the criteria, the qualifications. They probably didn't hire you because you didn't meet the qualifications. So now you need to move to qualify yourself for this type of job to make this kind of money. Because we don't want to keep brothers in denial too and use that because they're a convicted felon, they hold it against them. No, qualify yourself because there's too many of us out here. Like I said, I done spent 3 years on death row, gang leader, been all on gangland, but I'm a professor at a university now. I used to be the director of a large drug program. I was able to excel, but what kept me, how to sustain me, was a support network. I remember sitting in a GED class at 32 years old, trying to learn how to do fractions and multiplication with a bunch of kids, 18, 19 years old, laughing at the questions I'm asking, calling me pops. I want to hit one of them little marks in the eye, but I don't want to get put out the class. So I had a support network I had to tap into to give me what I needed to go back in that class, hold my head up, and get the GED. Because I would have quit it, right? So that's what I suggested, brother. You know, become part of it. That's the key thing, is get you a new support network. Because everything you take on, you're going to run into some ambivalence.
Okay.
What I mean by that, you know, I wanted to work, but then when I went looking for work, I run into these discriminatory barriers, these collateral consequences. But then on the other hand, I had more confidence in my hustling skills than I did in working a job. So I'm faced with this ambivalence. So I got to kill one of them off, right? And so through the support network, them brothers helped change my belief system. They said, Benny, as long as you believe you can't get a job because of your background, your motivation to seek employment is going to be real low, right? So they helped concoct me a resume, and they projected that I'm going to run into some psychological blocking agents.
Right.
Going out in public with a white shirt on and a tie with a resume up under my arm, feeling like Ike Nickelback because I'm dressed like a lame now. And see, like everybody passing me, looking at me like I'm easy prey, like I'm a Vic. And I want to say, man, I ain't with all this here. These are psychological blockades. But them brothers had to normalize, hey, we went through that too. And, you know, go do that, feel uncomfortable, but come back to the group and process it. Get energized to go back out there and follow through, man. Create a matrix. You know, matrix offers three things. It's a safe place. It's a place of nurturing and energy. And it's a place to explore future possibility. So that support group became my matrix, right? You know, like I said, I used to pick pockets, man. I used to pick pockets.
You was a cannon. You was a cannon, huh?
All that stuff. Like, you know how hard it was for me to just get on the bus, pay my bus fare, sit down and watch all these gifts just walk past me. That was pressure. I had to learn how to cross that line from being an outlaw to become a citizen. And it's hard being a citizen because citizens obey the law. I've been breaking the law all my life. But see, that support network, I had to check in with them. Right. And I couldn't face them brothers knowing I done relapse or I done went against a disagreement that I say I'm going to live by with this group, you know. And I had to learn how to set boundaries with homeboys. Want to jump in my car, want me to run or something. I mean, I don't know what you done did an hour ago or last week. You know, you get in my car, the guy see you in my car, air my car out because you in here. No, move around, holler at you later. I had to deal with that. And I felt guilty because these was my homies, but I had a safe place where I can go to process that stuff, to give me what I needed, right? And don't buy into them saying, well, you done lost your heart. You done got soft and all that. How you going to play us? That's how I always gave in before and always went back. So now I have to learn how to live by what you call the law of possibilities.
Right.
So coming home after 10 years, coming around us, we're going to not teach you, though. We're going to demonstrate that to you. We're going to make you comfortable around us enough to where your shame of not knowing how to cut a computer on or fill out an application, we're going to make you come, man. You remind me of me. Check this out. This is how you go. Make you comfortable being taught.
Right.
Right? So we normalize what you're going through. Now, I know what it's like to do a bit and come home and now I got to figure out how I'm going to feed myself, clothe myself, housing. Because see, in the penitentiary, those stimulants are not present. No one's telling you to pay rent in that cell you sleep in, or the food you eat in the cafeteria, or the clothes you wear. But the day you walk out of prison, you got to figure that out. How you gonna clothe yourself? How you gonna feed yourself? How you gonna get around? So we there to support you emotionally and psychologically, right? And we ain't gonna give you a lot, because we believe in that proverb: you give a man a fish, he got a meal for the day. But if you teach him how to fish, he have a meal for the rest of his life. But one thing we push too is that, like, our symbol for our organization is NGMGM, meaning the ability to endure hardships.
Okay.
And we let brothers know, man, you just did a bit, man. You done endured a hardship. When you got locked up, thought you was gonna leave that police station and they charged you. That was a hardship. Then you went to court, thought you were gonna get out on a high bond or something, and they gave you a high bond. You couldn't go. You had to go to the county jail. That was a hardship. Then you went to court for that preliminary hearing, think they're gonna throw it out, and they bond you over to the grand jury. That was a hardship. Then you realize months later you got to cop out for some time because you don't want to take it to trial. That's a hardship. And then you do time in the penitentiary. You can't come out with a trade because of overcrowdedness. There ain't enough space for everybody to be inside the welding program or the forklift driving program. And you get to that joint and there's a year waiting list. By the time you do qualify, it's time for you to go home. So you leave out there with nothing. That's a hardship. But don't punk out now. Come to us and we're going to normalize that. And we're going to show you the steps we took, the strategy we took, right? And then be humble.
Hey, Brother Benny Lee, real quick, I'm going to let my partner talk. I haven't been enough talking. Give us the number of your organization, and for those that are seeking help, the number, and, you know, for some people, like, because there might be some listeners right now that's willing and ready to make a change. Just came home, don't know what to do, confused. Like you said, they got two mindsets. They got to kill one. So maybe you would be the motivating factor to bring them over to the righteous side. You know?
Right. Yeah, the number is 773-593-2540. That's 773-593-2540. And then we don't discount the person that's probably been home 15 years.
Okay.
And been on their job for, say, 12 years. And then a new company buy their company out. And then that new company get rid of all the convicted felons. Mm-hmm. And now this person haven't interviewed for a job in 12 years. And laws have changed. So even that person, we got to teach them, okay, how do you put together not a cover letter, but an explanation letter, right? What are some of the laws? What are some of the incentives? You know, you got some people don't believe they can vote, right? So we clear up all these myths, right? So that's what we do. And that helps you to become a nonviolent person. See, people become violent when they're in a situation they don't know what to do. If you approach in a situation, fear kick in, or you feel threatened or disrespected, and you've been programmed that that's being disrespectful towards you, and you lash out and become violent, then that's how you're going to respond. So once you learn nonviolence, right, whatever come up, you got a nonviolent approach. It's just like when we was doing outreach work, violence interruption work. You know, I was one of the first violence interrupters with ceasefire. And I would train these brothers like how to interrupt violence, get them to shake hands and they agree to things, but they still walk away with violent tendencies. So if they run into a situation next week, they're going to deal with it in a violent way. So the nonviolent way, the Kingian nonviolent approach, that's Martin Luther King's beloved community approach, is that we got to work with them so they can think in terms of being nonviolent. So in case they run into a situation in the future, they can respond to it in a nonviolent way because they got the tools now. Right? And that's what we want to do, is change the mindset. We ain't dealing with the person, we're dealing with his mind. Because it's his mind that develops his brain. Right? So we want brothers to think different. Right? So we want them to think nonviolent. Right?
Okay. I'm going to let my partner take over for right now. I did enough. Come on, partner. Go ahead.
And you know what? And so that's why I kind of been like in the background listening because I got real bad reception. I don't know if I'm coming in clear to you all, but
Yeah,
it's just a little. You coming in clear. So you know what? And you may have asked this. I've been in and out, in and out. But if you could speak like directly to some of the youth that's still part of the, gang or still, gang banging, whatever it is that you guys call it. If you can speak to a youth right now and just tell, they out here getting ready to go do something reckless. If you can speak in the camera and say something to them now, what would you say to that youth right now?
Well, the way I look at most of the youth, so like when we were young, we was caught up in the trend, what was happening. Whatever our peers was doing, that's what we got caught up in. That's why you see, you ask a little guy why he sagged his pants, he couldn't tell you. Because he got pulled into the trend of sagging his pants. Or why he go get a switcher to put on his pistol to turn into an automatic weapon. You don't know. Because everybody else doing it. He get caught up into the trend. So one thing I don't do is tell young guys that they need to get out of a gang or they need to leave their friends alone, all that. Because if I tell them they need to get out of a gang, then what I'm saying is something wrong with the gang. And if he's part of the gang, then I'm saying there's something wrong with him. So his defense is going to go up. So my approach is to get him, first I build a rapport, a casual, hey, what's up, little brother? How you doing? Right? See him again. Hey, man, how's it going? That's a nice jacket you wear. So he comfortable, me speaking to him. And sometimes I might walk past, I don't see him. Hey, Mr. Lee, how you doing? So now he comfortable talking to me. I got to first establish that first, right? Now, once I got him comfortable talking to me, I ask him questions like, man, how do you visualize, say, your life, say, 3 years from now? I know he don't know how to answer that because he don't have a vision, right? So now I got to pull a vision out of him. Like, for example, do you want your own apartment? Like, yeah. Do you want like a regular steady income? Yeah. So what are some other things you want to accomplish? So I'm pulling a vision out of him, right? Then I asked him, I said, what do you got to do to make that a reality? And he might struggle, because he don't know. He never did it. And I know this. So I was like, say, for example, you feel you need to put a resume together. I think you might need to take up or say like a little trade or something like that. Or some other things you think you might need to do, pulling it out of him. Then I asked him, I said, what do you know about you that might block you from reaching them goals? He still don't know how to. I said, what I mean is when I was your age, I was in and out of jail and I always gave in to my homies. They would say, Jack, how you going to play us? I said, fuck it, come on, let's go. And I end up everybody going home but me. I didn't know how to set boundaries with my peers, right? I said, what do you know about you that might block you from reaching your goals, right? Then I'll come with us. If you're going to accomplish those goals, there's 3 things you might want to master. One is you can't reach that goal if you get killed. So you got to learn how to stay alive. And let me ask you this. Can you get killed hanging with some of the homies you know? You're like, yeah, right? I said, so how do you minimize the possibility of you getting killed? Can you get killed hanging in certain places? Get them to start thinking. So what do you need to do to minimize that possibility? I ain't going to tell him. I'm pulling it out of him, right? And then I say the second thing, if you want to reach your goal, you got to avoid getting arrested because you can't reach your goal. Now, let me ask you, if there's certain people you can hang with, man, you might end up just being arrested just by being with them. There's certain places you hang out at where you might just get arrested, right? So you got to minimize all those possibilities, man. But it's got to come from you. I ain't trying to tell you to change your life. I ain't trying to get you to change your life because I know I ain't got that much power. God don't even have that power because God gave you a free will.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who got the power? And he figured out, I do. So first, if you got a vision, you got to look at what is about you that you have to make that vision a reality. But mainly, what is it about you that might block you, hold you back, right? So I engage them in them kind of conversations. And I know it don't happen overnight because there's phases changes go through. If I'm talking with a young guy, like Bill was just saying, little guy out here plugged, running around with a thump on him and all those things, I know when I'm talking to him, he's in what you call a pre-contemplation phase. He don't see nothing wrong with what he's doing. Because everybody he interact with reinforces it's okay to strap up with a pistol. It's okay to get high. It's okay to shoot a gun. Everybody around him reinforces that, right? So he in a pre-contemplation phase. So my thing is to build that rapport with him and gradually put him around other young brothers his age that's doing different and engage them in conversation. And he can say things like, man, I can relate to what you're saying, man, because I'm going through that, da, 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 da. I can feel you, right? And then this little guy said, yeah, man, but now what I'm doing now. So now he grabs and now he's starting to contemplate doing something different, that what he's doing ain't right. He's starting to contemplate. That's the second phase, contemplation. Then it might take 2-3 more months to get him to what you call the determination phase. Well, now he's determined to do something different, right? He just determined. He ain't taking no action yet. He's just determined. And once we get him there, keep him around young guys that's doing something that came out the block just like him, and he know these guys ain't no joke, right? He feel comfortable talking to them. He built a support network now. Then we can move him to what you call a planning phase, because he don't know how to plan different, because he never had to plan for a job or for an apartment or for a career. So we set up a planning, but we pull it from him. What do you want to do, man? You want to try to get a job, or you want to just get a school, take up this trade, da, 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 right? So we come up with a plan, right? And then once we come up with the plan, now he move into the action phase, where he take action. So you can't just talk to young people and expect them to change overnight. It might take a year to get him to the planning phase, but you don't give up on him, right?
And you know what I was getting ready to say, Benny Lee, just for some of the new people that's joining, as well as I know Martin is sharing this on YouTube. I'm going to be sharing it on my YouTube as well. For those people that may be interested in saying, man, I'm loving what you're doing. I'm loving how you're doing it. I want to get involved. I want to volunteer. How do people volunteer? And are there any types of workshops or seminars or anything that's coming up that we can help you promote?
Well, one, we have a reentry circle every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. for the adults. If they're young people, like between, say, 16 and 24, we got a circle for them from 1 p.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. on Saturday. And they can go on Zoom. And that Zoom number is 812-6954. 3040. That's 812-694-3040. And the password is our acronym, NAFI, all capital letters, NAEFI. NAEFI. That's one way, getting on our Zoom, introducing yourself, expressing what you want to do, right? And then we just take it from there, building a relationship. It might be you want help for yourself, or you want to volunteer, or you want to become a reentry coach or whatever, but you can start there, or you can call the number 773-593-2540, because it's a lot of work to be done out here. It's a lot of work. And the work we doing is the work on people's mind. We got to change how people think. You know, Dr. Carter G. Wilson said it, that if you can control the way a man or woman think, you don't have to worry about their actions. You don't have to tell them to go here or go yonder or go around the back. They will go on their own. And if it's the back door, they'll carve one out for their special place. And a lot of people, I wouldn't say young people, just people in general, they don't know what to do because they never did nothing different. So they don't know how to do nothing different. And they are not around people that's doing something different. So they got to get exposed to people that's doing, you know, I remember the first black man I ever met that had a master's degree. That impressed me so much. Like I seen a rock star. Like, man, you got a master's degree? I know he been to Stateville Maximum Security Penitentiary, off 47th Street, a heroin addict. And now he got a master's degree and he was a regional director of an organization. That impressed me. Because I know he wasn't no punk. I know where he was cut from. That impressed me. So now when young guys see me on Gangland or they see me on American Gangster, I tell them don't get caught into that. Because the only thing they showing you with that life I live as a gang leader. But doing that interview for that program, they interviewed me for about an hour how I became a professor at a university. They didn't show none of that on that documentary.
Wow.
Because all they want to show you is that life I live as a gang leader, but they ain't going to show you how I worked my way out of that and became a professor at a university to give you some hope. So that part they don't show. That's why I don't even interview for them programs. I done been approached. One brother wanted to do a documentary on us when we was on the death penalty. I asked him, what you know about our case? He didn't know too much about our case. I said, how you going to do a documentary? You don't even know what our case was about. You know what we was fighting for. Man. You finna misrepresent us. No, I ain't finna do that. I ain't getting into that. Even when they were doing a documentary on us, the Vice Lords on Gangland, they was getting all these young guys, giving them all this misinformation because they didn't know. But somehow my name kept coming up. Then they tracked me down. And when I met with them, I said, what y'all trying to do? They started explaining, we're going to get a real history of it. I said, what y'all got so far? He said, well, one, we know Willie Lord was the founder of the Vice. I said, Dad, you need to start right there. He wasn't. That Big Pep was. And they started in 1957 inside a juvenile facility. That's where they started at. Willie Lord was still a baby then, right? So got them straight. Then they learned about Bobby Gore, who was the spokesman when they got all that grant monies in the 60s, right? I said, but in order for you to sit with him, you got to write a contract and hire him as a consultant. Because he ain't just finna get his free information. He old now. We're going to look out for our elders. And they did that, And I took all that stuff. I was in grad school at the time. And, you got to do this thesis paper for your master's. Right. I decided to write the history of the Vice Lords, how they became the first street gang to move to become a community-based organization, non-for-profit, and got grants. And I wrote that to show how that can happen. And after I finished, I got that stuff from Bobby and met with Lisa Lee at the Jane Allen Hull House Museum, and they helped me design a exhibit, a museum of that history. And we marketed that. They had it on display at the Cisco Theater. Showed the documentary. I done put it in a lot of colleges. It just brought tears in Bobby Gore's eye that stuff would have died with him in a garage. And I brought the life of that history. You can see it all on YouTube, But my whole thing is, how do you become a nonviolent person? I still live in Chicago. I still got to deal with pulling up at a gas station, young brothers out there serving and loud and rude. And I got to ask them, excuse me, let me buy to get in. They might look at me like, who you think you is? And it's stir up old gangster in me sometimes, right? But I got to humble myself, no problem, little brother. And go on in there, buy what I need to do. And come back, I'll go through the same stuff. And I might get in my car with a thought. The next time I come up here, this will happen. This is what I'm going to do. So now I'm premeditating violence. So I learned now how to self-rescue myself, to be conscious of that and share that with somebody. So when I run into that situation again, I'm better to deal with it in a nonviolent way. Because if I don't, I'll be premeditating violence. And something like that happen again, I'm acting on it, right? So this is how I learned how to be a nonviolent person. Like one of the principles of nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people, not cowards. Can't be no coward to be nonviolent. It's easy to be violent, but it takes courage to be nonviolent.
Wow.
I'm talking about that next time we I'm gonna talk about those principles and 6 steps of nonviolence.
All right. Anything else, Vera? We're gonna close it out. We've been on here like 40-some minutes.
No, you know what? It's something Benny just said reminds me of an old saying that my mother would say often, is that trouble is easy to get into and hard to get out of.
Yes, it is.
I heard that loud as clear.
Yes.
But no, you know what? I don't have any other questions. First of all, thank you for, just kind of coming in uncut, unedited, and letting your cat out the bag at the same time. Again, my reception is kind of, lagging over here. So I've been doing more listening than talking, which is good because we got a chance to really get some good, lessons and get a chance to really listen to you. So again, you are what I would call a legend to have been where you've been, gone through what you've gone through, and then be where you are now. So again, kudos to you.
Yes. Before I end, I want to give a shout out to Mark Mitchell, Teamwork Englewood, for allowing us to bring Benny Lee on his platform, Professor Benny Lee. And brother, you are a truly example of a person can change. So God gonna use you in the judgment. He gonna point to some of these young brothers and say, hey, didn't you see what I did to Benny Lee? He changed his mindset and he changed. So it is no excuse to anybody out there that's violent, that really want to change. Here's a brother right here. You can't see what you can't be. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, we see him right here. We know him. We are those of us that's been in that street life. We know about Benny Lee, and we know his change. It's a true change. And I want to thank you, brother, for being an example to the young people, to the older people, and let us know that you can change in spite of your circumstances and situations. And we're looking forward for the next interview. And we thank you. We thank you for Mark. We want to thank Mark Mitchell again for Teamwork Englewood for allowing you to come on here with us, me and Vera, my partner. And I appreciate you, brother. I met you. This is my second time meeting you. I've seen you before at the Hampton House. I met you over there that was like 4 or 5 years ago. But I appreciate you. Very smart, intelligent, articulate brother. And you definitely hold the key to both worlds. You know the street life, so we can't run it on you. And you know the educational part about it. So I appreciate you, brother. Listen, you're an inspiration to me because I often, what I do, I just want to say this. When I'm in the gas station, directly in the hood, I got to go when I got to go. And a brother come right in and jump in front of me and say, hey, give me 10 on. I just step back and hold my hands back like that. Go ahead, bro. And, you know, because I know, Brother Benny, I'm like this. I'm not so much afraid of him. I'm afraid of myself, what I might do.
Right.
So I educate my mind. I said, no, let me get out of that mindset because I'm here to help my brother, not destroy him. You know, I know my brother is sick, so I had to give him a pass. He don't know no better.
Right.
You know, and that's when, listen to you, I said, man, this is the same thing that I'm reliving in my head. You know, nobody want to be feel like nobody wants to take a loss, a L, as we say in the street term. So, but you know what? I'm for peace. I come in peace. I leave in peace. And I have the right tone when I'm talking to the brothers. And I say, brother, I don't want no trouble. I don't want no trouble. Now tell them, just like I hold my hands up and said, I don't want no trouble, brother. I'm coming in peace. I just want to live the rest of my life the best I can without getting into any social media beef, any verbal abuse. That's one thing I don't do, brother Benny, Professor Benny. When guys get on here and try to challenge me, I say a few little words. I never get into calling them B word or you're a punk. I don't get into that. I just hit the delete button, block them. Because, you know, some of these people I don't know from a can of paint. And they might walk up to me and justify in their mind. All they need is a reason, Benny. You know that. To give them the Kool-Aid conscience. Well, he was talking stuff he threatened me. He cut me off on the expressway. Because right now, as we speak, Brother Benny, and you know I know, and Barry, you know, somebody's loading up their pistol. Yeah. They want to test it out on somebody. They want to test it. Young and old. So thank God for a new mindset. And that's what we got to have, a new mindset. Like the brother said, a new mindset. We don't want to be a victim.
Right.
I definitely don't want to be a victim. I'm going to let you close out, Benny. Go ahead.
I got a buddy of mine. He used to run a group of those vice lords, the mafia, King Troy. We call him KT. And he ended up with life in the federal penitentiary because his chief status.
Right.
And they cut it down to 30. And I used to be his chief years ago. And he said, man, how you dealing with all that violence out there? I said, man, it's like this here. When me and you was young, we wouldn't hesitate gunning somebody down. But now that I'm older, I'm reluctant. I would hesitate. That means I can't compete with these young fools that's have that molly, right? I didn't have a mortgage at one time. I didn't have a wife at one time. I didn't have grandchildren at one. Now I got all those things. A lot of people is relying on me, you know, and then my values have changed now. You know, I can't pick a pocket today because I know if I pick a pocket, that brother, that I might have took the money of his rent or his child's food or something. So I look beyond the money that I can take. So my value, so it's hard to pick a pocket now. It's hard to commit a crime now because I buy into this first principles of Nguzo Sabo, unity, right? To strive for unity within the family, the community, race, and our nation. I just got a new set of principles I live by now. And some value, and that's what keep me when we talk about those 4 tenets. It begin with self. What should I be educated on? I need to be educated on a new value system for myself. I need to be educated on my worth, my self-worth. I need to be educated on my inner strengths. I need to be educated on my weaknesses. I wouldn't say weaknesses, but the areas I need to prove in my life, right? And then I had to learn how to sustain me. I ain't got to go back to that old guy. How do I sustain me? New relationships, a matrix, a support group. And then how do I console myself when a tragedy happened in my life? How do I console me and don't resort back to that way? And then how do I celebrate victories in my life? And I live by that, what I broke down, the beloved community model. Begin with self, relationships, then community. But it also, those 4 tenets. What should you be educated on? How do you sustain yourself? How do you console yourself? And then how do you celebrate yourself? So,
all right.
Can't wait till the next interview.
All right, my man. All right. Hey, nice to meet you, Brother Lee. Benny, listen, Professor. I like to say Professor. That's out of respect. You call me anytime, brother. Anytime. I appreciate you. This is live, uncut, unedited. Y'all know what time you already know what it is. It's live, uncut, unedited. And this is where we tell the truth. And what? And shame the devil. All right, my partner. Thank you so much, Vera Giles Norris. I love you, sister. I love you. We worked so many so many years together. Never had an argument. Never had an argument, you know. And you know what? Loyalty trumps everything. Loyalty. I tell you, you can't go buy that in the store. You can't buy loyalty.
Right.
You know that, right? All right, Brother Benny Lee. Let me know when you want to do it again. And you got my number. And set it up, Vera. We all get together. We do it again.
You just tell me how soon you want to do it. I'm there.
Okay, about another week. I said another week.
Okay, we can do it another week. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Peace out.
All right. Nice seeing you.